The night I left everything behind didn't just change my life, it split it in two. Before and after. I hadn't packed up my world because I wanted adventure. I did it because staying meant slowly dying. 2 years in that marriage had turned me into a ghost. The bruises weren't always on the skin, but they were there, etched into my bones, my voice, the way I flinched when someone moved too fast. Marcus had a way of making love feel like a cage, locking me in with gaslight and guilt until I didn't know who I was anymore. When I finally walked out, it wasn't triumph, it was survival. But the real damage? That came after. The silence he left behind echoed louder than his fists ever did. Leaving Sydney nearly broke me. My family begged me to stay. My sister cried on the curb when she dropped me at the airport, gripping my hand like she could pull me back to shore. But I had to go. I wasn't going to heal in the ruins he left behind. I was a personal trainer, an athlete. I knew what rebuilding looked like. But this wasn't muscle. This was soul. So I crammed my life into 2 suitcases and booked a one-way flight to LA, city of endless treadmills and people running from something. The plane landed with a stomach drop of reality. No. Home, no job, no one waiting at the gate. Just me, dragging my bags through a city that didn't give a damn. But you know what? I'd take that indifference over fear any day. At least the silence here didn't whisper threats. I checked into a dusty motel near Koreatown. Cockroach-sized room, flickering lights, but it had a lock that worked. Spent the next few days pounding pavement, sweating through my only blazer, handing out resumes at every gym from Venice to downtown. I got lucky. A manager at a 24-hour fitness spot in West Hollywood liked my accent and my deadlift stats. Head trainer, just like that. The gym was a 25-minute walk from a studio I snagged on Melrose, tiny, but it had a balcony and no screaming matches echoing through the walls. I didn't have a car, but my legs worked just fine. I was good at pushing through. Bit by bit, my life started to feel like mine again. I made friends at the gym, got invited to post-shift tacos, even started seeing a guy from Vancouver named Chris. Funny, sweet, called me mate to make me feel at home. I'd catch myself smiling on the treadmill, thinking maybe, just maybe, this was happiness. Then came that night. I'd stayed late to cover the front desk after someone called out sick. By the time I clocked out, it was creeping up on 2 a.m. Sunset Boulevard still buzzed. Traffic, neon signs, a guy singing badly to a Bluetooth speaker. But my street was a different story. Quiet, tree-lined, no traffic. Shadows like spilled ink. I turned onto my block, earbuds in my pocket, keys laced through my fingers just in case. My building was only a couple 100 meters away, almost there. Then came that gut-deep pull. Like someone had opened a freezer door behind me. That bone-chill instinct, someone's watching. I slowed, told myself I was being paranoid. Trauma plays tricks like that. Still, I pulled out one earbud, listened, and that's when I saw him. Man standing under the dim light of a busted bus stop just before my turnoff. Big. At least 6'3". Built like a linebacker, but wrong. Not just heavy, bloated, like something swollen in the sun. His hoodie hung like wet laundry, stretched, across a belly that didn't seem to breathe. Our eyes met and I stopped breathing. This wasn't a person watching the street. This was something else. Something hunting. I forced my steps to stay even, calm. You don't run, you don't show fear. That's how prey acts. But every part of me screamed. Muscles tensed, skin prickled, heart hammering like it wanted out. I looked past him, not at him, not again. My street, just a few houses down. My door, my lock. The air shifted. He didn't move, but the night felt tighter. I didn't know if I'd make it to my apartment, but I knew if I looked back, I wouldn't like what I saw. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Behind me. Heavy. Intentional. He was following me. My stomach twisted so hard I thought I might puke. No more guessing. No more shadows playing tricks. He was real. He was behind me. I've trained my whole damn life. Fought for every ounce of strength in this body. But I'm 5 feet tall, 135 on a good day. That man, he was a wall. A freight train in a hoodie. There was no squaring up. Not with him. I turned onto my street and, God, every light was out. Trees arched overhead like twisted fingers. Shadows slithered across the pavement, pooling into black holes. The air itself felt thicker. Alone. I was completely alone. I picked up speed, fumbling in my bag for my keys, fingers trembling, heart jackhammering in my chest. I wrapped my hand. Around them, blades out between my knuckles like I'd practiced 100 times. Just get to the door. Don't stop. Don't look back. Then, thud, thud, thud. The sound of boots hitting pavement, fast. I spun. He was right there. A scream tore out of me before I could think. He lunged, his hands, massive, snatched at my jacket. The impact knocked the wind out of me. His grip was iron, suffocating, dragging. But I had the keys. I swung. Wild, raw, sank the jagged metal into the side of his face. He grunted, flinched, but didn't go down. My stomach dropped. Then, headlights. Blinding white burst down the street, slicing through the dark. A horn blared, sharp and urgent. The man froze. One heartbeat, too. Then he ran. Disappeared between the trees like a nightmare melting into fog. I stumbled backward, gasping, legs jelly beneath me. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I gripped the key so hard my knuckles ached. The car rolled up beside me, slow. Window down. You okay? A guy's voice. Late 20s maybe, warm with concern. Wait. I know you. You're at Iron Pulse, right? Trainer? I couldn't speak. Just nodded. Breath ragged. I swear I've seen you there. Here, look. He fumbled with his wallet, held up a gym membership card and a license through the window. Connor, I swear. Please let me drive you just to your place. I froze. Every instinct screamed. No. Then I saw her. Passenger seat. A woman. Mid-30s, I think. She turned toward me, eyes wide with concern. There's two of us, she said gently. I'm Jules. We saw what happened. Everything in me churned. My brain short-circuited between stranger danger and please don't make me walk. That street again. My knees wobbled. And then I got in. The second the door shut behind me, the whole world cracked open. I started sobbing, loud, choking, ugly tears. My body shook so hard, I thought I might fall apart right there in their back seat. But I was breathing, was alive. That night rewired something inside me, burned a truth into my bones. Your gut is not lying to you. If it feels wrong, it is. I still hear those footsteps in my sleep. Still flinch when a shadow moves the wrong way. But now, I listen. Next time, I won't wait to be sure. Back in university, I was juggling classes, rent, and ramen noodle dinners, so I took the first night job I could find. 19, broke, and running on caffeine. Pretty standard. I landed at a 24-hour McDonald's off campus. Figured it'd be mindless work. Turns out, the night shift had its own brand of weird. One night in particular still creeps into my thoughts when I least expect it. It was my first shift. Midnight crept in slow. The kitchen hummed, the fryer popped, and the parking lot outside sat still under buzzing lights. Then came this sharp, cutting voice through the drive-through speaker, high-pitched, agitated. I leaned closer, confused. A woman was parked there, hands flapping like she was swatting invisible flies. Her face twisted in frustration as she shouted at someone inside her car. It looked like a full-blown argument, but I couldn't catch the words. Something about, "You always do this," and I said no. The kind of thing a mom might yell at a couple of kids misbehaving in the back seat. At the time, I was neck-deep in a psych degree, so of course I started theorizing. Overworked single mom? Maybe her kids were having a meltdown. Or maybe it was her partner and things had finally snapped. But when she finally pulled up to the window, it got unsettling. She asked for 3 Big Macs, 3 large Cokes, fries, and a couple of Happy Meals. I tapped it in, no big deal. But when I looked up, my stomach did a little flip. She was alone, no kids in the back. No one in the passenger seat, just her. And that smile, wide, practiced, too perfect, like she'd rehearsed it in the mirror. "Busy night, huh?" she chirped, her tone way too sunny for the storm I'd just heard in her voice. I gave a tight-lipped smile. "Yeah, something like that." She took her food and drove off without missing a beat. As soon as she turned the corner, laughter exploded behind me. I spun around. "What?" Jake, one of the grill guys, smirked as he flipped a patty. "Welcome to the night crew." That was crazy Gladys. Sophie, who worked fries, leaned over the counter, raising an eyebrow at my still confused face. "She's a regular. Always comes through yelling at people who ain't there. Buys enough food for a family of 6, every damn night." The air felt suddenly thinner. Jake shrugged. "Nobody knows her real name. Gladys is just what we started calling her. Long story." I blinked. "Has anyone, asked who she's talking to?" Sophie shook her head. "Hell no. She's not mean or anything, just off. And I don't know, there's something about her. Don't poke the beehive, you know?" But I was already hooked. Over the next few nights, I kept an eye on her. Like clockwork, she rolled in around 12:30. Same car, same wild gestures, same ridiculous order. And every time she yelled. Not just irritated yelling, this was full-on anguish. Like she was talking to someone she desperately needed to reach, but couldn't. It crawled under my skin. By Friday, I'd made up my mind. I needed to talk to her. Nothing serious, just a joke or something to break the ice. Maybe she'd laugh it off. Maybe she'd explain. Maybe I'd finally understand what the hell was going on. That night, her voice came through the speaker before I even greeted her. "Juan, don't you dare." I said, "No, we're not doing this again." My blood ran cold. Juan, this wasn't random. She was yelling at someone. A specific someone. I froze, hand hovering over the mic button. Her voice cracked on that last line, like something in her was splintering. I hesitated, then hit the mic. Are you, talking to me?" Silence. Then, calm as anything, she replied, "No, it's nothing." A second later, she pulled forward, like the conversation had never happened. And me? I just stood there, headset crackling in my ear, heart pounding so hard it made my ribs ache. This wasn't going to be simple. I looked at her and gave a crooked smile, trying to play it off casual. "So, is Juan gonna order something too?" For a second, nothing. Dead silence. She just sat there, fingers strangling the steering wheel, knuckles bone white in the dim dashboard glow. Her lips twitched like she was trying to say something, trying to understand what I'd just said. Then she screamed, not like a scared little shriek. No, this was feral. A deep, unfiltered, soul-cracking scream that shot straight through the intercom and into my skull. Every hair on my body stood up. I yanked off my headset as the sound blasted through, a distorted, shrieking banshee wail amplified by cheap drive-through speakers. It lasted 30 seconds. 30 eternal seconds of this horrible, ragged human noise that didn't even sound real, like something wild had crawled up from her chest and broken loose. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My fingers were frozen over the register. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. Behind me, the kitchen was dead quiet. Even Jake had stopped flipping patties. Sophie stared, hand still in the fry bin. Nobody made a sound. It was like the whole building had held its breath. And then, just like that, it stopped. Silence. Not peaceful silence either. Heavy. The kind that fills your lungs like smoke. The only sound was the faint hum of the freezer, compressor kicking on in the back. I forced myself to swallow. "Ma'am, do you, still want your order?" No response. And then, without warning, she floored it. Tires shrieked against the pavement as her car lunged forward. I stepped back as she shot past the window, fast and reckless. For a split second, I caught her face, wide, panicked eyes, mouth open, still shaped like the scream she'd just unleashed. She looked terrified. And then she was gone. I just stood there, ears ringing, heart pounding in my throat. The headset crackled once, then fizzled out. Dead. I jiggled the volume knob, smacked the screen like that would help. Nothing. The whole system had shorted. Whether it was coincidence or that scream actually fried the thing, I didn't care. I was done. Later, once the adrenaline had worn off and the kitchen started moving again, I turned to Jake, voice low. "How long's she been coming here?" He leaned against the counter, arms folded, face unusually serious. "Long as I've worked here, over a year easy, a whole year, a year of screaming into nothing." I felt this cold knot in my stomach twist tighter. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. I kept seeing her eyes, hearing that noise in the back of my head like it had been carved into my memory. She never came back after that. And if I'm honest, I was relieved. But part of me still wonders where she went. What she was running from, who Juan was, or maybe what he was. But mostly, I hope she's okay. That wherever she is, whatever hell she was caught in, she found a way out. I never took another fast food job after that. Hell, I still avoid drive-thrus. When I started making deliveries, my parents always warned me about how dangerous the streets could be. I knew they were picturing robberies, maybe a hit and run, something tragic but ordinary. But neither they nor I had any idea of the kind of danger that actually awaited me that night. I had been delivering orders for about 5 hours, and my legs were already aching from the constant pedaling. Just when I thought I was done for the night, another order popped up. Triple hamburger. Everything extra. Odd. Most of my orders were tacos or fried chicken, never something this heavy this late. The address led me to a forgotten neighborhood on the outskirts of the city. The streets were nearly empty, the few streetlights flickering weakly, and several houses looked abandoned. When I pulled up to the house, an unsettling feeling crept over me. It was a 2-story structure, but the windows were boarded up from the inside. The door wasn't welcoming either. It was covered in strange scratches like someone had been desperately trying to claw their way in. Or out. Still, I wasn't the type to overthink things. I just delivered the food and left. No questions. I knocked. A moment later, the door creaked, open. A tall, lanky man stood there, wearing an oversized pair of pants and a gray t-shirt so stained and discolored that I couldn't tell what its original color had been. His hair was unkempt, greasy, and his eyes, something was off. They were too wide, too alert, as if they weren't focused on me but on something beyond me, behind me. "You arrived," he said, his lips curling into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. His hand, trembling slightly, extended a crumpled bill toward me as I handed him the bag. Just as I turned to leave, his voice stopped me. Wait a minute. Something about the way he said it, his voice low, almost like a whisper, made my skin crawl. Worse, he said my name. I hadn't told him my name. My name tag was inside my jacket. I didn't look back. I got on my bike and pedaled away, faster than usual. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. It was my boss. "Hey, you need to go back. That customer just called. Said there's something wrong with his order. He sounded off. Just go check it out, yeah?" I didn't want to. Every instinct screamed at me to ignore the call, to just go home. But my boss sounded concerned, and I didn't want to risk my job over some weirdo's complaint. So I turned around. As I neared the house, a metallic scent hit me. Sharp, unpleasant. It wasn't there before. I knocked. No answer. I tried again. Nothing. A bad idea, I knew, but I tried the doorknob. It twisted easily. The door was unlocked. Inside, the air was thick and suffocating. The only sound was a faint murmur coming from the kitchen. I stepped closer, my pulse hammering. Then I saw him. He was sitting on the floor, legs folded beneath him, surrounded by the empty food bag. But he wasn't eating the burger anymore. He was chewing, slow, deliberate, on the cardboard box. Grease smeared his lips and chin as he mumbled, "This was delicious, but I need more." A shiver ran down my spine. Something was very wrong with him. I should have left. I should have turned around and sprinted out of there. Instead, I took one more step. He moved too fast. Before I could react, he lunged, shoving me backward. My head smacked against the hard floor, and darkness swallowed me. When I came to, my wrists were bound, tightly, with a thick cable. My vision was still swimming, my thoughts hazy, but I could hear him muttering to himself, sifting through the remains of his meal. I forced myself to stay calm, think. There, just within reach, was a frayed edge of the cable. I twisted my wrists, trying to rub them against it. My fingers were numb and every movement sent a sting of pain through my skin, but I didn't stop. After what felt like an eternity, the fibers began to give. Then, snap. My hands were free. Carefully, I sat up. He hadn't noticed me yet. His back was turned, his head tilted unnaturally as he pawed at the greasy paper, whispering something under his breath. My eyes darted to the kitchen counter. A knife. Heart pounding, I grabbed it and took a slow, silent step toward him. But then, the floor creaked, his head snapped around. For the first time, he truly saw me and his expression twisted into something monstrous. "What do you think you're doing?" His voice was no longer human. It was guttural, raw, seething. Before I could react, he lunged. The knife slipped from my hands. I hit the floor, gasping as he landed on top of me, his weight crushing the air from my lungs. His mouth opened, too wide, too hungry, his teeth inches from my face. He was trying to bite me. I thrashed, fought, but his grip was iron. His breath was rancid, his lips smeared with grease and something else, something I didn't want to think about. I barely managed to turn my head before his teeth sank into. I managed to shove him away, and his head smacked against the sharp corner of the table with a sickening thud. He slumped to the floor, motionless. My heart pounded in my chest, but I didn't waste a second. I scrambled to my feet and bolted toward the door. I twisted the knob, locked. Shit. The keys had to be somewhere. I darted around the room, yanking, opened drawers, checking under piles of junk, but found nothing. My mind raced. Then it hit me. His pockets. I hesitated, but only for a moment. Swallowing my disgust, I knelt beside his sprawled-out body and reached for his pants. My fingers brushed against cold metal. Keys. Just as I wrapped my hand around them, a sudden vice-like grip latched onto my ankle. "Don't go," he rasped, his voice ragged but filled with a manic determination. Before I could react, he yanked hard, sending me crashing onto my back. Pain exploded through my spine as the keys slipped from my grasp and skittered across the floor. "I've decided what I'm going to do with you," he hissed. He swung his fist into my ribs, knocking the air out of my lungs. I gasped, struggling to recover, but he was already on his feet. Then, he grabbed a chair. He lifted it high above his head, eyes burning with something animalistic, something far beyond reason. I had seconds to act. I rolled to the side just as the chair came crashing down, splintering against the floor. My body screamed in protest, but adrenaline kept me moving. What followed was a savage fight for survival. I threw a punch. He dodged and slammed me against the wall. I kicked him back. He stumbled but came at me again. Neither of us was backing down. He tackled me, sending us both crashing onto the ground. My head smacked against the floor, stars bursting in my vision. His hands wrapped around my throat, pressing down with terrifying force. "No, no, no," I thrashed, clawed at his arms, but he was stronger, too strong. My vision darkened at the edges. My lungs screamed. Then, my hand found something, a jagged piece of broken wood. Without thinking, I swung it at his face. Crack. He reeled back, blood dripping from a gash on his forehead. I didn't stop. I hit him again, and again, and again. A sick part of me registered the sound, bones crunching, wet and awful. But I didn't care. I didn't stop until his body collapsed, motionless, blood pooling beneath him. My breath came in ragged gasps. My hands were trembling so hard I could barely think. The keys. I spotted them near the chair's broken remains and snatched them up. My fingers fumbled, nearly dropping them as I jammed the right one into the lock. The second the door clicked open, I ran. I didn't look back. I jumped on my bike, pedaling like my life depended on it, because it did. I didn't care if someone found him. If he was dead. If he wasn't. I just needed to get away. It was only when I reached a safe distance, the house nothing but a dark speck in my peripheral, that I finally allowed myself to breathe. The first thing I did was call my delivery company. Everyone was horrified when I told them what happened. My boss kept repeating, "Jesus Christ, kid," over and over. But when I tried to report it to the authorities, that's when I learned the truth. The man's father was wealthy, powerful, connected in all the right places. The case disappeared. No news reports, no investigation. The house remained a ghost town, untouched. And me, I quit. Now I work in an office. Customer service, boring, repetitive, safe. But some nights I wake up drenched in sweat, my body paralyzed, my mind back in that house, back in that fight. Back in the moment where I realized my life could have ended over something as simple as delivering food to the wrong person, and worst of all, somewhere out there, he might still be alive. March 2020. The world had shut down. COVID-19 had locked everyone inside, except for essential workers like me. College sent us all home, so I had to adjust to taking classes over Zoom. At the same time, I went back to my old job at a burger joint. I won't say the name, but it was always packed. Strangely enough, when the pandemic forced most restaurants to close, we stayed open. That made things even more chaotic. Stress was part of the job, but there was one regular who made things worse. This guy, let's call him the Watcher, was an odd one. He always mumbled about conspiracy theories, his eyes darting around like he was mapping out escape routes. He'd roll up on his bike, peering through the windows like a damn gargoyle, until someone took his order. And he was picky, insisting that only certain employees serve him, snapping at anyone else. He always ordered the same thing, a double cheeseburger and fries, extra crispy, almost burnt. He was a nightmare to deal with. Customers were so uncomfortable. Around him, they'd rather wait in their cars than stand near him. At first, he came in during the day when we were slammed, but his attitude got him pushed to the night shift. That was my shift. I usually clocked out around 11 p.m., but on one particular night, around 9:30, I was wrapping up my tasks when I saw him roll up on his bike again. He was one of the few customers still allowed to order at the window. No matter how much of a pain he was a regular. As expected, he wanted everything fresh. But this time, there was something new. He demanded that his fries be served with a spoon instead of tongs. I told my coworker Mark about it. Mark just groaned, already fed up. Still, he dropped a fresh batch of fries into the fryer, knowing that arguing wasn't worth the hassle. The manager, new to the night shift, didn't know about the Watcher. When she handed him his food, she used the tongs. That was a mistake. He inspected the fries, his expression darkening. "These aren't fried enough," he muttered, shaking the bag. "I asked for extra crispy." "They're exactly how you like them," I said, already exhausted. His eyes snapped up at me. "No, they're not." Mark, standing beside me, muttered, "Man, we put up with this guy for too long." I agreed. We had tolerated his tantrums for months. We weren't his personal chefs. Sighing, I turned back to my work, hoping he'd take the food and leave. But instead, he did something worse. He leaned into the window, pushing his head and arm inside, calling for my coworkers. "Redo it," he demanded. "No," Mark said, stepping forward. "The food's fine." That set him off. With a growl, he threw the bag into the restaurant. The burger hit the floor with a wet smack, fries scattered everywhere. Grease stained the counter. The manager, no longer willing to put up with him, stormed to the window. "You do not treat my employees like this," she snapped. "We serve you fresh food every time, and this is how you act? You can take the food or leave, but we're done." His face twisted into something ugly. "You'll never serve me again," he spat. "Give me my money back." Not happening. His fingers clenched around the counter edge. For a second, I thought he was going to climb inside. But then, just as suddenly as his rage had flared, It died. He exhaled sharply, yanked his bike around, and sped off into the night. None of us spoke for a few moments. Then Mark muttered, "Next time, I'm calling the cops." I nodded, but deep down, I had the uneasy feeling that this wasn't over. A few minutes later, I went to get the manager. She needed to handle this before it got any worse. When she arrived, the guy didn't calm down. He escalated. He started shouting at her, his voice sharp, cutting through the restaurant's usual hum of kitchen noises. She tried to reason with him. "Sir, I just need you to leave." But that wasn't enough for him. He wanted to win, to get the last word. The tension was thick, pressing down on all of us like a weight. Everyone had stopped what they were doing, watching. Finally, just to get him out of there, she gave him his money back. But instead of leaving, he did something none of us expected. He grabbed her arm. For a split second, it looked like he was trying to pull her through the window. Her body lurched forward, and I swear my heart stopped. If it weren't for the plastic dividers we had up because of COVID, she would have gone right through. Chaos erupted. Everyone started shouting, telling him to let her go. Someone was already dialing 911, and then I heard it. Someone whispered, "He assaulted a girl last week. That changed everything." He finally let go and the manager stumbled back, her face pale. But instead of running, the guy doubled down. He started pacing by the entrance, ranting to himself, his movements jerky, erratic. One second he was cursing us under his breath. The next, he was shouting that he was going to call the police on us. He slammed his fists against the window. Hard. The glass rattled. We ignored him. No one dared to engage. Then just when it felt like it couldn't get any worse, flashing red and blue lights painted the street outside. 4 patrol cars. They blocked off the entrance, making sure he had nowhere to go. The officers stepped out, hands on their belts, approaching carefully. And then, just like that, the madness vanished from his face. He straightened his posture, wiped his sweaty brow, and turned into a different person. His voice, so wild moments ago, was now calm, measured. He spoke with the officers politely, using the kind of vocabulary that made him sound intelligent, even reasonable. It was eerie. If you had just walked in, you'd never believe this was the same guy who had just attacked our manager, the same one who had made us all feel so unsafe. It was only when the police checked the security cameras that they saw the truth. The footage didn't lie. They arrested him on the spot. Even then, he didn't resist. He let them cuff him as if he'd done nothing wrong. They had to escort him out because he showed no intention of leaving on his own. And just like that, he was gone. But not really, because after that night we'd still see him. Not inside, no. He was banned. But outside, passing by on his bike. He never came in again, but sometimes he'd slow down just enough to glance inside, his empty eyes peering through the windows, and every time I caught him looking, I felt a cold shiver crawl up my spine. There was something wrong with him, the way he'd explode over the smallest things, the way his aggression flipped into unsettling politeness, the way he looked at us, like he was memorizing our faces. The manager quit shortly after. I didn't blame her. No one should have to deal with that. I stayed, but something changed. Even after things went back to normal, I couldn't shake that uneasy feeling. That gnawing fear that some customers weren't just difficult. Some customers were terrifying. I'm going to be honest from the start. I'm not the kind of person who compares themselves to others. We all have our pasts, and some of us carry memories we'd rather forget. But if I have to be completely honest, my story is different, more complicated than most. Since childhood, my life has been a series of unfortunate events. My parents died when I was young. After that, I bounced between orphanages and foster homes one after another. When people hear this, they assume I must have been a problem child, but that wasn't the case. I just had terrible luck. The truth is, no matter where I ended up, I was never wanted, never treated with kindness. Eventually, I realized something. Running away was better than being somewhere I didn't belong. Living on the streets wasn't easy. I learned to survive, to keep moving, to avoid trouble. But I also learned something much worse. No matter how bad things seem, they can always get worse. I thought I had hit rock bottom. I told myself nothing could be worse than starving, freezing, and being alone. But life is cruel. The well of misery has no bottom. That night, the cold cut through me like a blade. My coat, thin, tattered, did nothing to stop the wind from seeping into my bones. My stomach had stopped growling hours ago, the hunger dull but ever present. I sat curled up in a dark corner of an alley, knees drawn to my chest, waiting for the night to pass. And that's when I saw him. He looked ordinary enough. A pizza delivery guy, wearing a uniform, holding a box in one hand. His breath curled, in the cold air as he approached, smiling like he was just another guy on his route. But something about him made my skin crawl. "Hey, you hungry?" he asked. The smell hit me first. Warm cheese, tomato sauce, fresh crust. My stomach clenched painfully. I hadn't eaten in 2 days. I hesitated, my instincts warring with my hunger. Then, cautiously, I reached for the box. "Thanks," I muttered, voice hoarse from disuse. I placed the box beside me, waiting for him to leave, but he didn't. He just stood there, watching. That smile still stretched across his face. Frozen. Unnatural. My unease deepened. "Aren't you gonna eat?" he asked. I forced a small laugh, trying to play it off. "Yeah, just later." His expression twitched, just for a second, but it was enough. The smile faltered, then came back, tighter this time. "No need to be shy. Go ahead." Something in his tone made my skin prickle. A strange kind of insistence. Like it mattered to him. Like it mattered too much. I swallowed hard. "I will. I'm just not used to." His smile dropped. His jaw tightened. "Don't be ungrateful. Eat it, now." The way he said it, sharp, commanding, sent a jolt of fear through me. My instincts screamed. I appreciate it," I stammered. "But really, I'll eat it later." His hand shot out, gripping my arm, hard. I said, "Eat." "The damn pizza." His fingers dug into my flesh, the pressure cutting off circulation. Panic surged through me. I tried to yank my arm back, but his grip only tightened. I didn't think. I just reacted. My fist flew up, connecting with his face. His head snapped back and his grip loosened just enough. I wrenched myself free and ran. Behind me, I heard him recover, heard the slap of his shoes against the pavement as he chased after me. My pulse roared in my ears. My breath came in ragged gasps. I turned corners blindly, searching for somewhere, anywhere to hide. An abandoned building loomed ahead. Without thinking, I dove inside, my feet crunching over broken glass. I pressed myself against the wall, chest heaving, trying to control my breathing. The silence was suffocating. Then, footsteps. Slow, deliberate. He was inside. "I know you're here," his voice called out, sing-song. "You left footprints." Shit. He was right. I'd tracked dirt all the way in. I squeezed my eyes shut, cursing myself. "Why are you hiding?" he asked, voice getting closer. "Weren't you hungry? The pizza's good, you know." A floorboard creaked. My breath hitched. The door to the room I was in began to creak open. I held my breath and prayed. I could feel his eyes scanning the room, searching. He moved with a slow, calculated precision, like a predator savoring the hunt. Every step he took toward me sent a fresh jolt of fear through my nerves, hammering them raw. The moonlight filtered through the broken window, illuminating just enough for him to see, just enough for him to find me. I shut my eyes for a moment, whispered a silent prayer. "Please, please don't let him see me." Then, suddenly, his face appeared right in front of mine. A scream tore from my throat as I jerked back, but his hand clamped around my arm with bone-crushing force. "I told you to eat," he growled. He shoved me hard against the wall. Pain exploded across my back, but I barely registered it. I was running on pure survival. His grip tightened, fingernails digging into my skin. I thrashed, fought, every instinct screaming at me to break free. Then, in sheer desperation, I drove my knee straight into his crotch. A strangled scream ripped from his throat, his grip loosening just enough. I didn't think. I ran. I bolted up the stairs, heart hammering, lungs burning. If he caught me, I was dead. I knew that. I felt it in my bones. I lunged into a room, slammed the door shut behind me, and scrambled to find something, anything to block it. My eyes landed on an old chair. Shoving it against the door, I pressed my weight into it, praying it would hold. A deep guttural voice rumbled from the other side. "I've had enough of you," he snarled. "You won't be getting your damn pizza anymore." His voice twisted into something even darker. "I'm gonna make you sleep. I'm gonna bash your head against the wall till you stop moving." A cold shudder ran down my spine. My eyes darted around the room. There was a window, but it was too high. No way out, no choice but to fight. I spotted a rusted metal pipe on the floor. My fingers curled around it, the weight unfamiliar but reassuring. My hands trembled as I stepped toward the door, heart thudding in my ears. Then, crash! The door burst. Open. The chair skidded across the floor as he stormed in, face twisted with pure rage. I was behind the door. He didn't see me right away. Gripping the pipe tight, I sucked in a breath, steadied my shaking hands. Then, with everything I had, I swung. The pipe connected with his back. He let out a sharp, surprised grunt and stumbled forward. I didn't hesitate. I raised it again and slammed it against the side of his head. A scream. Blood. He staggered, trying to regain balance. He reached out, one last attempt to grab me, but his knees buckled, and he collapsed to the floor. His fingers twitched. His breathing was ragged. But he wasn't dead. I should have finished him. I should have made sure. But fear overpowered me. I turned and ran, breath ragged, mind blank with terror. I scrambled onto the windowsill, slid down the slanted roof, gripping the edge to keep from falling. My hands stung from the rough surface, but I didn't stop. My eyes darted around in panic until I spotted an emergency staircase. I climbed down, fast, nearly slipping, nearly falling. My heart pounded so hard it hurt, but I couldn't stop, not until my feet hit the pavement. Then, I ran. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to get away. At some point, my legs gave out, and I collapsed behind a row of bushes in a small park. My chest heaved, every breath sharp and painful. My body trembled, but I was too exhausted to care. And somehow, despite everything, I fell asleep. Days passed. I tried to push it all away, to pretend it hadn't happened. I got a job. I saved money. I found a cheap hotel to stay in, planning for something better. Eventually, my life took a turn. I met someone, my future wife. She offered me a place to stay, a fresh start. For the first time in years, things felt okay. Then one night I saw his face again, on the news. I froze, staring at the screen, the past slamming into me all over again. Chester Turner, that was his name. One of the most dangerous serial killers in Los Angeles history. I survived. I got away. But how many others hadn't? That thought haunted me. If I had stayed, if I had hit him again, just one more time, how many lives could I have saved? How many people wouldn't have to go through what I did? I don't blame myself. But I can still hear his voice in my head. I still remember the way he smiled, and I know that fear like that never truly leaves you. I was reading a newspaper article the other afternoon when something jolted me, an eerie memory from over 2 decades ago. It was late 1998, and I had just started working as a security guard at a block factory. My shifts rotated between 3 schedules, 4 p.m. to midnight, 7:30 p.m. to 3:30 a.m., and the dreaded midnight to 8 a.m. slot. That middle shift, the 7:30 one, was only for coverage, so there were usually 2 of us working during those hours. The job itself was dull, routine patrols, jotting down anything unusual, and staring at a tiny monitor displaying grainy security footage. Most nights were quiet, predictable, but the Pay was steady, and I saved up enough to buy a car. By April 1999, I had made up my mind. I was leaving. A new chapter of my life awaited, and the factory would just be a forgotten blur soon enough. That's when they hired Chad. Chad was brought in as my replacement, a soft-spoken man with an awkward demeanor. He was about 10 years older than me, and was assigned to work night shifts for training. Most nights he was paired with Anna, another guard my age. We were both 20, fresh into adulthood, and just figuring life out. Chad, though, he was different. Polite, yes, but something about him didn't sit right with me. It was like he was missing something. That natural warmth people had, he didn't have it. During our rounds, Chad would ask questions, normal ones about the job, sure, but his reactions were odd. He laughed at the wrong moments, his tone would shift mid-sentence, and sometimes he'd just stare at me like he was waiting for a reaction I didn't understand. I chalked it up to social awkwardness. Maybe he was just one of those guys who took a little longer to adjust. Then one night, Anna came back from patrol looking off. She wasn't talkative like usual. She sat at the desk, her hands clasped too tightly, her eyes avoiding mine. I knew something was wrong. I waited until Chad went to the restroom before I leaned over. "What happened?" I asked. She hesitated, then exhaled sharply. "It was at the brass mill." The brass mill was the darkest part of the plant. By 6 a.m., it was completely shut down. No workers, no lights, just a hollow silence. That's where it happened. She swallowed hard. I turned around, and Chad was right there, just standing over me. My stomach twisted. "What do... You mean standing over you?" "I mean he was way too close," she whispered. Like he had been waiting for me to turn around. She shuddered. Then he leaned in like inches from my face, and he whispered something. "What did he say?" Anna hesitated again, her fingers brushing over her wedding ring. "He said it wouldn't be on my finger much longer." A chill ran down my spine. He said it like he knew something, like he was certain. She was shaking now. I panicked. I backed up and hit the railing. I think he liked that. I clenched my fists. From that moment on, I made sure to take Chad with me on rounds instead of leaving him alone with Anna. I kept my eyes on him. The rest of the shift passed without incident, but when it ended, I left a note for the supervisor, detailing exactly what Anna had told me. Something was seriously off with Chad, and I wasn't about to let it slide. The next night, when I arrived for work, Chad wasn't there. At first, I figured maybe he'd been fired. Maybe someone had taken the note seriously. But when I walked into the security office, Anna was sitting there, staring at her phone, her face pale. "What's wrong?" I asked. She looked up at me, her eyes wide, her breathing unsteady. "Chad," she whispered. "He's not here because he was arrested." A strange, heavy silence filled the room. "Arrested for what?" Anna swallowed. "For murdering his wife." The words didn't land right at first. It felt like she had spoken a foreign language, like my brain refused to process it. She continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "He dismembered her. I felt like I couldn't breathe. They found her burned body parts less than a mile from here." I gripped the edge of the desk, my knuckles white. The nausea hit fast. The memory of his voice, his laugh at the wrong moments, the way his tone changed mid-sentence, came flooding back. Anna's eyes darted up to meet mine. It happened months before he started working here. That was when it hit me. He had already done it. Before he ever stepped foot in that factory. Before he ever stood in the dark, whispering to Anna, I felt sick. From that night on, the hours dragged by in silence. Every creak of the building, every flicker of the security monitor sent a shiver down my spine. Because the reality was, I had spent nights alone with Chad. I had walked next to him in the pitch-black corridors of that factory. I had laughed off his oddities, brushed off my instincts, and all the while, I had no idea who, what, I was really standing beside. The nights that followed were suffocating. The realization that I had spent time with a man like Chad, a man capable of something so grotesque, sat in my chest like a weight I couldn't shake. Every interaction we'd had replayed in my mind. His odd laughter, the sudden shifts in his tone, the way his eyes lingered a second too long. At the time, I had brushed it off as social awkwardness, but now I wasn't so sure. Had he done something else? Worse? Had he been planning to? Had he been watching us, studying us, waiting? The thought gnawed at me as I paced through the factory that night. The plant, already dimly lit, felt darker, the shadows stretching in ways they never had before. Every distant creak, every flicker of movement in my peripheral vision sent a cold shiver up my spine. I couldn't shake the thought. What if Chad had been lurking in these very corridors, waiting for the perfect moment? What if Anna hadn't backed away in time? What if I had let my guard down? The shift dragged on, every second stretching into an eternity. When dawn finally came, I walked out of the factory feeling no relief, only a deeper unease. The memories of all those nights spent with him pressed against my skull like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. And then the guilt set in. Had I missed something? Had there been a sign? A moment where I could have seen the truth? If I had just looked closer, would things have turned out differently? Years passed, but the memory never faded. It clung to me like a shadow, creeping into the corners of my mind at unexpected moments. Sometimes, while driving late at night, I'd glance in the rearview mirror and swear I saw his eyes staring back at me, cold, calculating, waiting. And every time I think of Chad, a deeper, more unsettling question lingers. How many times in our lives do we stand beside real monsters, laughing with them, working with them, unknowingly giving them the benefit of the doubt? How many shadows do we ignore,